Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another AP Human Geography lesson. Today, we're diving into devolution. When regions within a country gain more political power or even break away, think of it like when your younger sibling suddenly decides that they don't have to follow the house rules anymore because they think they're grown. Spoiler alert, that usually doesn't go over very well. So, by the end of today's lesson, you'll understand what causes devolution, including physical geography, ethnic separatism, economic disparity, and more. Basically, we're looking at why some regions decide, yeah, we're better off doing our own thing. Kind of like how some South Floridians insist that anything north of Orlando is basically Georgia. Okay, so devolution happens when a central government gives more power to local governments, sometimes leading to full on independence. Think of it like your parents finally letting you stay home alone, you get more control. But if things go south, like if you throw a party, you're more than likely to lose that privilege really fast. So in politics, this can mean more self rule or even complete separation. So, the factors that lead to devolution of states would be physical geography, ethnic separatism, ethnic cleansing, terrorism, economic or social problems, or irredentism. Okay, so geography plays a big role in devolution. If a region is physically separated by mountains, rivers, or even just being far away, it could develop its own identity and push for independence. Like Puerto Rico, for example. It's a U.S. territory, but because it's an island, it has its own economy, culture, and even politics. Another example would be Hawaii. There are some movements advocate for more self governance because of its distinct history and geography. The harder it is to stay connected, the more likely people are to start thinking, maybe we should just go our own way. Here are some examples. Okay, for ethnic separatism, sometimes cultural differences fuel devolution. If an ethnic group is has a unique language, religion, tradition, it feels ignored by the larger government, they might push for independence. Imagine if all the Cubans in Hialeah decided that because of their culture is so distinct, they should run things their own way. That's ethnic separatism in action. Real world examples would be the Basques in Spain and Tibetans in China, both of whom have pushed for their more autonomy. The next one would be ethnic cleansing. Unfortunately, conflicts over independence can sometimes turn violent. Ethnic cleansing happens when one group tries to remove another group from a region, often through force. It's a tragic and dark part of history seen in places like Bosnia in the 1990s or in the treatment of the Uyghurs in China today. Think of it as an extreme, horrific attempt to erase a group from a country. Understanding that these events, it's important because they shape borders, governments, and human rights worldwide. Okay, an example of ethnic separatism found in China, where groups like the Tibetans and the Uyghurs have sought greater autonomy. Tibet is a region with its own distinct culture and enforces strict control. So the Similarly, the Uyghurs, a Muslim ethnic group, and they're found in the Xinjiang region. They have faced a heavy government surveillance and restrictions on their religious and cultural practices. These tensions stem from ethnic, religious differences, as well as historical claims to independence. In both cases, China has resisted separatist movements through strict laws, surveillance, and in some instances, force. Okay, so terrorism and devolution. Some groups turn to violence to push for independence, and that's where terrorism comes in. Groups like ETA in Spain carried out attacks and demand independence for the Basque region. And it's kind of like if your little brother kept annoying you until you finally let him play video games, but way more extreme and obviously very dangerous. While not all independence movements resort to violence, some use terrorism as a strategy to pressure governments into granting autonomy or independence. So there can also be economic and social problems. Money matters. Economic disparities can fuel devolution too. If one region feels like they're paying more in taxes but not getting enough benefits, they might push for autonomy. Imagine your older sibling is always trying to get a bigger allowance, even though you do more chores, you'd probably want a better deal, right? Well, a real world example is Scotland, which is debated independence partly because of economic concerns over resources like oil. Another example is Northern Italy. Some wealthier regions have argued that their taxes should stay local rather than support the poorer areas in the south. When economic power is concentrated in one region, it can fuel resentment and calls for more control over their own finances. All right, so irredentism happens when a country claims land because people of their nationality live there. Imagine if Cuba suddenly said, hey, Miami has so many Cubans, we should just take it. Don't worry, that's not happening. A real example would be Russia's claim over parts of Ukraine, arguing that Russian speaking populations there should be a part of Russia. And this has led to conflicts, including the annexation of Crimea in 2020 or 2014, and on the ongoing tensions in eastern Ukraine. So irredentism can lead to territorial disputes, political instability, and even war. All right, so now we're going to cover factors that can lead to the devolution of states, including division of groups by physical geography, ethnic separatism, ethnic cleansing, terrorism, and economic and social problems, and irredentism. So let's look at some case studies in devolution. So there's some real world examples would be Catalonia, Spain, and it's a wealthy region with its own language, culture, and has pushed for independence, holding on an independence referendum in 2017, despite the opposition from the Spanish government. Another example would be Quebec in Canada, and this is French speaking Canadians have debated separating from the country for decades, with independence referendums in 1980 and 1995. And then we have Sudan and South Sudan. So this is longstanding religious and ethnic differences that have led to a full-on split in 2011, making South Sudan the world's newest country. However, tensions and conflicts continue to arise even after the separation. Okay, so Yugoslavia was once a unified country made up of several different ethnic and religious groups. Over time, tensions between these groups led to violent conflicts and the country breaking apart into several independent nations in the 1990s. This process is called balkanization. When a state fractures into smaller, often hostile entities, the Yugoslav wars involved ethnic conflicts, displacement, and even genocide. Today, countries like Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina exist because of this devolutionary process. So sometimes physical geography isolates a region so much that it fuels devolution. Take the Canary Islands, for example. Even though they belong to Spain, they're way out in the Atlantic Ocean, far from the mainland, leading to calls for greater autonomy. Tibet is another example. Its mountainous terrain separates it from much of China, making it a culturally distinct area from China. In Quebec, Canada, some remote francophone exclaves feel disconnected from the rest of the country, fueling separatist sentiments. And in Lagos, Nigeria, and the economic powerhouse in the country, its geographic and economic separation from poorer regions creates tension. And when regions are physically cut off, they then develop their own identity and sometimes want more control. So, ethnic separatism can lead to devolution in cultural, linguistic, and religious differences. It can create strong divisions within a country. And here's a few key examples. Quebec, Canada, French speaking residents have long advocated for their independence due to their distinct language and culture. Though Quebec remains a part of Canada, the push for sovereignty still exists. In Nigeria, ethnic groups like the Igbo have sought independence due to economic and political differences with the central government, leading to conflicts in the Biafran War. Russians in Ukraine, sometimes Russian speaking populations in eastern Ukraine, have supported separatist movements, leading Russian intervention and ongoing conflicts. And Catalonia, Spain. This is considered a stateless nation. Catalonia has a distinct language and identity and is repeatedly sought independence despite opposition from Spain's government. Okay, so some groups seeking independence or autonomy use terrorism to pressure central governments for concessions. A notable example are the Troubles in Northern Ireland from the 1960s to 1998, where the IRA conducted violent attacks to push a unification with the Republic of Ireland. Although the Good Friday Agreement in 1998 largely ended the violence, some paramilitary groups still exist today. So while terrorism can draw attention to separatist causes, it often leads to prolonged violence and instability. And the eventual political solution in Northern Ireland highlights that the importance of addressing underlying grievances through peaceful negotiation for a lasting peace and stability. Okay, so irredentism. This occurs when a country wants to take back land it once controlled or claims as a part of its historical or ethnic homeland. This can lead to conflicts or tension between nations. So, some examples are Ethiopia and Somalia. These two countries have had disputes over regions of Ogaden, and Somalia claims the land because of its ethnic Somali population, but Ethiopia controls it, and this has led to wars in the past, and it still creates tensions today. Crimea in 2014, Russia took control of Crimea from Ukraine, even though Crimea had been part of Ukraine since the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. And Russia argues that the region is a large Russian speaking population and should be a part of Russia, while Ukraine and much of the world view it as an illegal annexation. And lastly, Argentina wanting the Falkland Islands. So Argentina claims the Falkland Islands, which are controlled by the UK. Argentina argues that the islands are part of its territory given their proximity to South America, but UK has controlled them for over 180 years, leading to tensions between the two countries. Irredentism shows that the desire to reclaim territory can lead to conflict and challenges in international relations. It's about national pride, ethnic ties, and historical claims, sometimes leading to wars. Okay, so to recap, what did we learn? Devolution happens when regions gain more power or try to break away, and often because of geography, ethnic identity, economic issues, or conflict. These movements shape the world map, and change governments, impact millions of people. So, next time you hear about a region fighting for independence, think about devolutionary factors at play, not just politics. It's about people, culture, and power. So that's it for today. Make sure you review your notes and you complete your bell ringers, lesson reviews, and reflections. I will see you next time for more AP Human Geography. Bye, guys.